Halifax.
Welcome to the fabulous Friday edition of the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alster. Hope you're having a great day today. It's been a Friday around the old radio station today, I'll tell you that much. We've had some technical issues to start the day off, and Vanessa hits the wrong button to start the show off, so maybe we got all the bad stuff off the menu now, and we can move on and have a flawless, fabulous Friday edition of the program. The wait is over, everybody. Are you excited? Game 1 of the World Series goes tonight. Everybody's been with building anticipation, I will say, as the Toronto Blue Jays host the Los Angeles Dodgers, and people are reminiscing back to 1992 and to 1993, the last time that this happened, and some of you listening out there maybe not even born yet, or very young at that age. Some of us do remember it very well, and I remember exactly where I was when Joe Carter hit that game-ending walk-off home run to seal the World Series. I remember exactly where I was sitting, and I remember exactly what happened. I remember, of course, celebrating with the people I was watching the game with, and then we went outside, and the whole neighborhood was cheering. It was the only other time that's ever happened that I can remember was the golden goal when Sidney Crosby scored that goal at the Vancouver Olympics. I remember everybody jumping out onto their balconies and out into their front yards, and we're cheering along with everybody else. So a Canadian uniting moment happening here beginning tonight. Game is at 9 o'clock. Major League Baseball, by the way, I think, does playoffs right. Game 1 goes tonight, right? Game 7 is next Saturday, if we get that far. Within a week, it's done. Major League Baseball, and I know it's different, and I know it's not a contact sport and and I know that it's that there's 3-game series and 5-game series and 7-game series involved in this, but Major League Baseball can start and end their playoffs in the month of October. So we're not, fatigued by the time the final comes around. Anyway, lots of people making lots of predictions. The odd makers are predicting Los Angeles, but if you believe the odds makers, they're not right all the time, right? Trey Savage starting for the Jays. He's he's at 4 games under his belt. Youngster against Blake Snell, who is starting for the Dodgers. This whole David versus Goliath, every cliche that you can think of is happening. What will happen with Bo Bichette, the Jays' arguably best hitter in the regular season? Is he back? Is he ready to play? Is he going to play his regular position? What's going to happen to there? I want to hear your predictions for the series. We'll do that when we open up the telephone lines for the Friday free-for-all at 11 o'clock, and I'll lay out mine. If you're traveling around HRN, there's stuff going on. Of course, the World Series is starting, but that's not until 9 o'clock at night. And as always, don't forget, I would be remiss if I didn't remind you that you can catch all of that action live on your radio, right? 95.7 FM, 9 o'clock, the first pitch, and it's the best way to listen to baseball, my opinion. But if you're doing stuff in and around HRM, before the big game on tonight and tomorrow, some traffic changes, I'll call them, that you need to keep in mind. We've obviously heard in the news today that the MacKay Bridge will be closed to traffic starting at 8 o'clock tonight and carrying through until Monday. There's some caveats attached to that, dealing with weather and such. So we're very pleased to welcome from Halifax Harbour Bridges, Mr. Steven Proctor. Steven, how are you?
Good, and I'm all rested up for the game tonight.
It's going to be much watched TV, right? Or much listened to radio, I should say.
Yes.
Care to
100%.
Care to make a prediction?
No, that would be too dangerous. I don't want to think. I've got my junior sweater that I put on, so right. I'm an avid fan. But no predictions, except I know that they will give everything they've got with their heart, and
right.
if that's enough on a given night, then we will succeed.
Let's hope. It certainly would be something that will go down in Canadian history if we're able to win that World Series again. Anyway, to the matter at hand, Stephen. Some traffic disruptions this weekend for those using the MacKay Bridge. Now, I understand that this is dependent on the weather. Have you got an updated forecast on the weekend?
Everything looks great. There's the weather, and it's primarily the wind. We've got some big machinery that's on there that's going to be pulling down a cable testing facility that people may have noticed when they're crossing the bridge. And it can't be gusty when they do that because it'd be dangerous. But everything looks good for this to happen this weekend.
What exactly are you doing on the bridge?
Well, there's a couple of things. We always try. We try and do as much as we can when we close the bridge. We don't like to close the bridge, but it's only when there's critical things that we can't do when there's still traffic running by. In this particular case, we've got multiple cranes that are taking down a piece of infrastructure that we use for testing the cables. The cables are critical to the operation of the bridge, and so as part of our regular annual things, we're always testing the cables, and you can't just test the same cable in the same place all the time. You've got to get an accurate reading. So we test the cables in different places. And so this is the last closure. We're pulling this down. It can't last through the winter, but it involves multiple cranes to pull it down. So there's no traffic that we can we can't have, close just two lanes because there's these cranes and this big piece of equipment that's coming down. So they'll roll up Friday night after 8 o'clock when we close the bridge. They'll get positioned. Saturday they'll position to take it down, and then they'll demobilize on Sunday.
Obviously.
If they're done earlier, then we'll open the bridge earlier.
Right.
This year, for this particular closure, we've partnered with Halifax Transit, and in an effort to mitigate the congestion, we're offering HHB is paying your bill for crossing on the harbor using the ferries this weekend.
So free ferries all weekend?
From 8 o'clock tonight through to Sunday, and nobody's running on Monday morning before 5:30. So. So free ferries, trying it, if it works, this is something we'll do in future closures of the MacKay. McDonald isn't quite the same kind of thing. The system can handle traffic absorb the MacKay, but McDonald cannot absorb the MacKay traffic.
Understood. And there are some restrictions on the McDonald as well that people need to keep in mind.
That's right, and there's no commercial traffic. There's no serious commercial traffic that for the weekend. They've got to find another way around between the two sides of the bridge,
Steven,
two sides of the harbor.
Are you this the last one? Are we done for the season?
We're done any scheduled ones. I always leave the door open if there's some kind of accident or some kind of incident that we find, but this is the last scheduled closure for 2025.
And the last question, and most important question, Stephen, a lot of companies are wearing blue today, some changing their logo colors. Any chance we can get the bridge painted blue by the time the game starts?
We're just doing a really good job of painting it really green again. So I think blue is a little bit out. Maybe in the future we'll have a system where we could light up parts of it blue or something, but we just don't have that capacity right now.
Something to plan for the future. Stephen, I appreciate your time. I know you're busy.
No problem. Thank you very much.
Steven Proctor, Communications Manager for Halifax Harbour Bridges. So just in case you missed it, the bridge will close at 8 o'clock tonight. The weather is a go, at least at this point. Some work happening with cabling and platforms and big cranes coming in to facilitate that work. And they are dependent on the weather, of course. And should something change, and we know what can happen with the weather, just wait 5 minutes, right? Then we will certainly communicate that to you. But as it stands right now at 10 minutes after 10 on Friday morning, it is a go. The MacKay will be shuttered at 8 o'clock tonight and will be closed right through until Monday at 5:30 or sooner, let's hope. And facilitate you, Halifax Harbour Bridges says that they will pick up your fare for the ferry. So if you haven't taken the ferry for a while, here's an opportunity to get out and go for a ferry ride, right? It's free ferries right through the weekend to help with the traffic congestion. And a reminder to those of you that use the MacKay, if you're a commercial vehicle, no vehicles over 3,200 kilograms, except for buses, not allowed on the McDonald Bridge. There will be bridge patrols out monitoring to enforce that rule. So the Angus L. McDonald Bridge will be open as usual, but usual weight restrictions will be in place. Last one for the year, folks. So this is the last time until 2026, unless something unexpected happens, that we'll have to deal with this bridge closure, at least on the MacKay Bridge. Time to stop down. Time to take another break. Did you wake up this morning like I did and read the latest in the round of hijinks in the United States? Apparently, Donald Trump not happy with Doug Ford, nor with Doug Ford's advertising campaign that uses some audio and some clips from former Republican President Ronald Reagan. He's upset so much, in fact, that he's halted trade negotiations with our country as a result. Is this Trump being Trump? Or is there something more deeper involved in this? We're going to stop and take our very first break here on the Fabulous Friday edition. And on the other side of it, we'll connect up with our friend and political science professor at Dalhousie University. That is Laurie Turnbull. You're listening to the Todd Veinotte Show. Go, Jays, go. I'm Dan Alstrand. Well, just when you think you haven't heard it all, something new happens, and that is our ongoing relationship with our friends south of the border and the administration that is the government of the United States under Donald Trump. We heard that Ontario and Doug Ford was getting ready to send an advertising campaign south of the border to, and I'm putting quotations around this, to inform Americans about and how tariffs work, and used some quotes from former U.S. President Ronald Reagan, who I know Donald Trump holds in high regard. Donald Trump finally saw it, I guess, and grabbed his phone and went crazy on his Truth Social platform, laying out the law with regards to this. And what the end result is that trade negotiations between our two countries have now halted. And here we go again, so to speak. Very pleased to welcome back to the show on a Friday, political scientist and, of course, our good friend, Laurie Turnbull. Laurie, how are you?
Doing great. How are you doing?
I'm okay, I think. I never know what to think about this stuff anymore because it just seems like he sees something and he gets onto that and onto the platform and gets the capital letters out and off we go, right?
100%. I mean, and you don't know what to make of it and how much of an impact this is really going to have. Like, he said this type of thing before, like he got mad about the digital sales tax and says, okay, no, it's off. We're not talking anymore. And things just kind of went along. So we'll see whether this has any more impact, whether it actually does bring things to a halt.
Doug Ford saying that everything they did was above board. The Republican or the Reagan Library saying that things are being misquoted and taken out of context, and the sniping going back and forth. This obviously is going to be a bit of a head scratcher for Mark Carney now, who has to try and deal with this, right?
I guess so. I mean, again, it sort of depends on where things really land and how, Trump put something on Truth Social, negotiations are going to come to an end. Well, what does everybody else down the line do, right? Does that mean that all the conversations that are happening in rooms that actually don't involve him, like there's all kinds of back and forth going on between the two countries in terms of the trade relationship and anticipating Kuzma negotiations and things like that? I mean, is that work really all going to stop now? It depends on, I think, depends on how the message is received there. And I'm not sure that, I don't think that the prime minister is going to be quick to react. I suspect that, he'll kind of wait and see where the chips fall kind of thing. And It's weird with the reaction of the Reagan Foundation, right? They're saying like, well, this was misquoted and they didn't get our permission and we're looking at our legal options. Hello, like people don't have to get your permission to put a video up of Ronald Reagan. He was the president. Like, get a grip.
And the audio apparently was in the public domain anyway. It was copyright free.
Yes. So it's all like tiptoeing around Trump on the American side. No wonder we're trying to put videos up to kind of get through to people, because clearly this foundation feels like they have to appease Trump and they're trying to be on his side of all of this. But I mean, like we're allowed to put an ad on television. We actually are.
Donald Trump, or just a few minutes ago, putting out another one of his missives on his social media platform, saying that Canada's trying to influence a Supreme Court decision. I don't think that's what this was about at all, was it?
No, I mean, to be fair, like some people are definitely going to say, look, Doug Ford is not helping by creating these ads that get under Trump's skin and putting them on TV and taking that kind of approach. In my view, there's nothing clandestine about this. There's nothing. It's all like, if Doug Ford is anything, he's right up in your face with his communication. And this is all above board for people to see and decide whether it affects them or not. I don't think it has anything to do with the Supreme Court decision. Doug Ford has been taking this approach since back in the winter, as soon as the tariff stuff started. Ford has been on the airways in the U.S. He's been on CNN. He's been on Fox. He's been taking out ad buys for months now. So, no, I don't think it's got anything to do with the Supreme Court.
The Prime Minister getting ready to leave for a summit in Asia, and I know that there's a bunch of high-profile meetings that are happening here in the coming weeks, and a couple of them involves the U.S. president. How do you think that reception is going to be when they shake hands at these meetings?
Well, that's it, right? I mean, we'll see again how things shake out between now and then. I think that the Prime Minister, I'd be surprised if he made any direct comment about this at all, because we have to distinguish between when there is actually a policy shift in the U.S. and when Trump is having a tantrum. And clearly, something like this, it gets under his skin. It's emotional. His reaction is emotional. They're using, he idolizes Ronald Reagan. This guy from Ontario is trying to use Ronald Reagan's words against me, and so he blows up. But does that really change anything in terms of the negotiations? I don't know. But yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see what the dynamic is between Trump and Carney for sure, because it's like Carney and Ford have been a good cop, bad cop. Carney goes and shakes his hand and has the nice time in the Oval Office and all that kind of stuff, and kind of grits his teeth. You can see it when Trump says things that drive him crazy. Whereas Ford is just right up, he just takes him on head on, which I think helps Carney in a way, because Ford can take that kind of line and Carney doesn't have to. But at some point, right, like if this really is off the rails now, then yeah, we're in a whole other world of mess.
Can this be a relationship that works to Canada's benefit, having the attack dog Ford doing what Ford does, and Mark Carney coming across as sort of being the intermediary between the two? Is that, I mean, we've seen it in politics all the time where a leader has an attack dog in the House of Commons, for instance, right?
Exactly. I mean, and not to get too far off topic, but that's one of Pierre Poilievre's biggest political problems, is that he wants to be the leader and the attack dog.
Right.
It kind of doesn't work, to be honest. But for this, I think it does make sense for Doug Ford, who is like, he's almost perfect, right, in the sense that his political personality very much lends itself to this tough talk, like that kind of thing. He's a businessman himself. He owned a company in Chicago. He's able to go and have conversations with people. Like he was a businessman in the U.S., right? Like he gets it. He's able to kind of get at this in a different way. And because he's not the Prime Minister, but he is a very impactful political actor in Canada, he has the legitimacy, right? Like he actually does kind of have the platform. He's got the foundation. He's got the legitimacy to stand up and make these kinds of statements. And it makes it look like we're not just lying down all the time. Like it makes it look like we've got some, I don't know what to write it, like mojo here. Like we're not just totally, on the reverse end, like we're not just taking everything from the U.S., but it would be not a good idea for the Prime Minister to show up like that. He has to show up like he's open to negotiation. He's respectful. And he's shown, I think, the Prime Minister has shown ways of being able to sit there with Trump and let him have all the oxygen in the room, but still kind of get his points in.
Now maybe Dominic LeBlanc gets a chance to come back to New Brunswick and sit in his cottage there in Shediac and watch the Blue Jays.
Oh God, him and me and everybody, right? Like I mean, at the end of the day, I think everybody's still like, yeah, God, Trump, here we go, one more time. But the Jays are playing tonight, so whatever.
Whatever.
Let's focus on what's important.
That's right. Canadians are united behind the Blue Jays. That's for sure. And playing an American team, I wonder if the Jays manage to win a couple games here, if that upsets Trump too.
Oh, I wouldn't be surprised if he flies off the handle about that.
Right.
We won't be allowed to play anymore. We'll be thrown out of the.
He's going to take his ball and go home, right? Is that what's going to happen? Laurie, very quickly, I know we're almost at the break here, but some political movings here in Nova Scotia this week. The Premier very quietly shuffled a cabinet and moved some pretty significant members out of cabinet altogether. I know you're obviously focusing on what's going on in Ottawa, but when a Premier does this and says he needs to get the right people in the right place, what kind of message does that send?
Well, this one's a bit of a weird one to me. So the fact that he put himself in the energy portfolio,
right,
that's not a surprise to me. It's not. I don't think it's something that's going to set a precedent forever. This is a particular moment where Houston wants to be the one in the room with Minister Hodgson on the federal level because they're potentially going to do a deal on energy, and I completely understand it. Like I have no issue with that. But it seems like the rest of it, there's no clear reason to me why these other people were moved around. And also, it's not like he's putting a big government brand on it. Like, it's not like he's saying, look, we have a new team, and he's not drawing a lot of attention to it. He did it in private, as he's taken to do these days. But it just seems like if there's something else going on in the background here that we're not, it just doesn't seem like there's a lot of pressing need for the rest of these pieces to move around.
Well, that's just it, right? And these comments in response to it was, well, we have to get the right people in the right place, and for those ministers that got shown the door, that's got to sting a little.
A little, yeah, a lot. I'm right. Like, what do you mean I wasn't the right person? You put me there,
right?
So it's a little, yeah. I don't know whether something else going to shake out here or what, but it doesn't seem like there's a clear public policy reason for shuffling the deck chairs. I mean, if you move one, you kind of have to move a couple. I get that, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure about this.
And some pretty star performers. Becky Drouin was in every cabinet that he's had, and there wasn't a sort of a glaring error that everybody was kind of focusing on. It was kind of weird.
Yeah, I agree with you. There wasn't a dark cloud gathering kind of feel to this, but we'll see.
Laurie, I know you're busy. I know you're getting things ready. You're going to watch the Jays game tonight, of course.
Absolutely, I am.
You going to make a prediction on the series?
No, I'm not. I'm not doing
That's
it.
That's very political, Laurie Turnbull.
You bet. Go Jays. That's all I can say.
Go Jays. I appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me.
That is Laurie Turnbull, our political scientist from Dalhousie. That's two guests in a row, Vanessa, that have said that. I don't know. I'm not gonna make a prediction. I'm wondering if it's because they are buying into. I'm not going to put words in people's mouths, but it's there's a lot of people that are in the odds man. And number one, I'm not a big fan of odds makers. They're there to make money. That's what they do, right? And they're not right all the time. I tried to find the number for baseball, like the accuracy rate of an odds maker, and I had trouble doing it. And to be honest, with all of the tech glitches that were going on this morning, I didn't have a lot of time. But if you're out there and you have that number, like the accuracy rate of odds makers in baseball, I would love to see it because I don't think it's high. And I know that the Dodgers are the heavy favorites, and the Dodgers are defending champs, and the Dodgers, smoked the Brewers, who are the best team in baseball. I've heard it all. But the Blue Jays aren't supposed to be here. The Blue Jays were last in the division last year. I think they were long shots at the beginning. You could have made some serious coinage if you'd have predicted that they make it this far. If you're into the betting thing, which I'm not, but if you are, that would have been a long shot bet. But I think people are just worried about jinxing everything, being very, very Canadian about stuff, right? I think after game one tonight, and if the Jays are successful, I think you'll see even more blue out there. I don't know if we'll get the bridges painted in time, but be something certainly to work on. Time to stop. Time to take. I'm going to make my prediction, by the way, in the open hour, and I'm looking for yours as well. So keep that in mind. We're going to open up the telephone lines at 11 o'clock today, and I'm looking for your predictions in the Circle of the World Series. Can the Jays do this? Stopping down for the news, Mark's going to update us on what's going on. The other side, I know Tim Powers won't be afraid to share his opinions on the Blue Jays. Tim Powers, our friend from Summa Strategies and Abacus Data, be your guest on the Friday edition of the program. We're back after the news.
Facts.
Welcome back to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. Hope you are having a Friday, and I hope you're getting ready to sit down and listen to the Blue Jays right here on 95.7 News Radio. It's going to happen at 9 o'clock tonight, and I know that our next guest, Tim Powers, will be watching the ball game tonight. Won't you, Tim?
Oh, Dan, who in Canada won't, really? I mean, I think with everything that's going on, we're rallying behind all of these Americans wearing Blue Jays jerseys who are representing us. Well, Vladdy, of course, he was born in Montreal, but
right.
My sarcasm aside, absolutely. Wouldn't it be great to beat the cultural symbol of the United States, or one of them, the LA Dodgers?
You remember last time, Tim?
Easy.
As I certainly do. I remember particularly 92 when they did it the first time, and just the amount of angst in the United States about somebody from outside of America, a team that's not based in the U.S., winning their national pastime?
Oh, my God, it was crazy. If you remember the first time, the World Series has never been played in the United States, and now it's the third time. I remember 93 well. I actually was in Stephenville, Newfoundland, when Joe Carter hit that home run, and it was awesome. And I, as I said to you, my son and I got a chance to go to the game 6 on Sunday night. And Dan, I've been lucky in my life to be at a lot of sporting events, and a few of them in Toronto. First of all, never seen a crowd like that in Toronto, and never quite seen a sporting event like that. We might have sat in total the whole game for 20 minutes, and that was in between innings. I mean, it was just electric, and the whole city was electric, and there's just so much rolled into this moment. And you heard, you guys played Savage's comments there a moment ago. He gets it. I mean, he's a proud American, and God bless him for being one. But he also gets what his job is now. He's pitching for the only team in Canada in Major League Baseball who've got a shot to do it.
It's we talk about sports uniting Canadians, and I mentioned 93. I remember I was in Thunder Bay, and I was in my parents' basement, and I just opened a brand new beverage, and Joe Carter hit that.
I was going to say there was a beer being consumed there, wasn't there? Go ahead.
And I spilled it all over myself, and then obviously celebrating with the people that were watching it with me, and then I went outside, and my whole neighborhood was outside talking about it. It was wild, and I wonder if we'll see that this time around.
Look, Dan, the only reason that had happened is because you transformed from stubbies to the tall boys. I mean, you were not used to handling it all. But you know what? Yeah, it is that way. It is that way. Like this week I've been in a bunch of different places talking to a bunch of different people. First conversation, Blue Jays, Blue Jays, Blue Jays, right. Whether they're sports people or not, because of everything else that's happening. And it's rare. I mean, it was 32 years ago we were last in the World Series. A lot's transpired between now and then. And this team, I heard an interview, you'll know this name, with Rob Butler. Rob Butler was the only Canadian on the Blue Jays in 93. He has family in Butlerville, Newfoundland. Heard him interviewed yesterday, and he was making the point that, this team in a lot of ways doesn't have the star power maybe of the 93 team, but it has the do it for the team attitude and do it for the country attitude. So nothing wrong with everybody jumping on the bandwagon for this one, because it's good for us to do so right now.
Last conversation, just before we brought you on, Tim, I was speaking with Lori Turnbull, about your Powers. That's Turnbull. Anyway.
I know her too. I know Lori.
Yeah, Lori and I were talking about this ongoing things with Trump, and I'll ask you those questions in a second. But I mentioned that, I wonder if the Blue Jays manage to pull this World Series off, if that's going to create even more trade tensions between our two countries. And I got an email from a listener who said, no, Dan, probably not, because Trump hates California more than Canada.
Yeah, for the Yankees, and the Jays just did roll through the Yankees, it might be the case. But yeah, I think if Gavin Newsom shows up cheering, maybe Trump will join Carney at the Rogers Center for a game if the Prime Minister does go to a game.
Doug Ford, Mark Carney, Donald Trump. Donald Trump saw these ads, I guess, last night when he was getting ready to go golfing or something, and then he took to his phone and brought out his capital letters, and now the trade talks have stopped.
I love it. I'm not always a fan of what Doug Ford does, but I think this is how you get to Trump, right? Like, why is Trump flaring? Because these ads are having an impact. It's a lot of public money, $75 million, but there's a lot more public money on the line. And if we are going to get at the Americans, we have to get at Donald Trump. We have to get at the American people. And who better to do that than Ronald Reagan? And again, as you said in the news, the Reagan Foundation might launch a lawsuit. That's great in some ways because that'll keep this story going. But I wouldn't pull the ads just yet. I wouldn't pull the ads. Let's threaten to amp up the volume, see what happens.
What happens now with negotiations? What happens the next time Dominic LeBlanc sits across from the U.S. cabinet?
Howard Lutnick, our favorite guy.
Right.
Well, Lutnick will come out and say something idiotic. He's prone to do that. I mean, look, we haven't really made them feel some pressure. I'm okay with that right now, and I think it's not bad politically for the PM, given he has taken a little bit of heat for maybe taking the elbows down. Look, the reality is we need deals. Absolutely. Let's talk to anybody in the auto, forestry, even our seafood sector in our neck of the woods, and they're worried, right? But I think Trump does, in some ways, respect a little bit of ferocity, and Carney can say to him, "Oh, look, Mr. President, I'll tell him to stop, but I don't control the guy. I mean, what am I supposed to do?" kind of thing, and give me a deal, and I think it has some utility at the moment, but it's going to be a little frosty for Dominic, but Dom's able to handle all that.
Mark Carney heading off on another trip to a summit in Asia. There's a couple of big summits happening here in the next couple of weeks, and some of them involving face-to-face with the president. How do you think that's going to go?
I mean, it depends on the moment. It depends what television show you watch. I think, I don't know. I mean, there was talk, the Globe Mail reported it. I'm sure you covered it. Bob Fipe's story earlier in the week about maybe there being some sectoral relief deals come November at the Asia Pacific Summit. Is that now off target? Even the PMO was talking about that being a possibility. But it's always going to be frosty and volatile with Trump. He's the crazy relative. You don't know where the hell he's going to go. Do you invite him to dinner and maybe he's in you're in his good books for 2 weeks and then he's crabby at you for 2 months? Like you just can't win with the guy.
How does this play with the Conservatives in the country, Tim? With all the focus, obviously being refocused onto Trump again, which hurt them in the last election campaign, and the budget coming up and Pierre Poilievre still facing a leadership review coming in January. How does he make any noise in an already noisy environment?
Well, he doesn't. He should stop talking about Justin Trudeau and the RCMP leadership. That would be some advice to follow because that's taking him off message. I think he's got to do what he's been doing, right? Focus on affordability. Where the Liberals have been vulnerable is linking all of what they're trying to do on trade and tariffs with your pocketbook, even though it's patently obvious. People don't think of that every day. They think about, they're going to the grocery store. You have Sylvain on your program, they go in and they're saying, oh, geez, look, I got to buy this, I got to buy that. It's so expensive. It's killing me. And Poilievre's speaking to that. I think Poilievre will try and use the budget to go after the Carney government. He's already started this on whether there's measures in there to help provide some tax relief on food. You've heard him talk about that. I mean, he will go after the deficit, and I like that, but I don't think the broad public right now is deficit-minded, right, as they were when you were spilling the beer over yourself in the 1990s. People cared about the deficit. You probably cared about losing the beer on your knees, but nonetheless, we're not in this deficit-conscious mindset. So Pierre, while he will talk about the deficit, will go after the cost of food and crime, I suspect so.
Tim, as always, a pleasure, my friend.
Take care. Go Jays, go.
You going to make a prediction?
I think I won't on this game, but I think they will leave Toronto 1-1. I think Toronto does get a game this weekend.
On the series?
On the series, that's tough.
Nobody's willing to commit, man. You're the third person they've asked today. Nobody's willing to commit.
Look, I think the Jays can win it. If they do, it probably will be another 7-game battle.
Fair enough. Tim Powers, appreciate it, sir. Go Jays, go.
Take care, buddy.
That is Tim Powers, our good friend from Abacus Data and Summa Strategies. It's like they don't want to jinx it. It's like they don't want to say it. It's like we're being very Canadian about our predictions, right? I don't know. Sorry, not sorry, but I think they might tend to take it in 7 games. Anyway, we're going to do predictions in the open hour. I know you're not afraid to say what you think about the Toronto Blue Jays. We're going to do that after 11 o'clock today. Make sure you stick around for that, and I'll even make my prediction. And anybody that follows my predictions over the years will know that what I say probably isn't going to happen anyway, but we'll do it as per normal. We're getting ready to stop and take another break here on the program. When we come back, we're going to dig right into that Blue Jays series. We haven't talked to our sports guy for a long time. That, of course, is the voice of sports in the morning here on 95.7 News Radio, and it's Simon Bennett will be joining us once he's done doing his thing in Toronto. He's going to pick up the phone and give us his thoughts. I will bet you that Simon will make a prediction about this series that's coming up. And I don't want to tip things off, but I saw Vanessa walking near the giveaway counter today. So make sure you stay tuned. Never know when that's going to drop either. You're listening to The Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. We are back in minutes. Talking about it, I can tell you that much. From coast to coast to coast, people are getting their blue on. I'm almost embarrassed to admit that I had a Blue Jays hoodie that I would normally wear, but for whatever reason, I think it shrunk in my closet. It doesn't really fit good anymore. It's vintage, I'll say, right? So. I have a Blue Jays blue Nova Scotia hoodie that I'm wearing today for to support the team. I don't have any. My Blue Jays gear is too small. Sucks when we get old, doesn't it, Simon?
It shrunk, did it? Is that what? So here in Toronto, there's the schools. Everyone's doing Blue Jays Day, right? We're all decked out of Jays gear at work. And I didn't have anything, so my daughter is going in a Billy Koch 2000 jersey.
Wow.
That I bought when he was a rookie. It's massive on her. No one heard. The teachers will be impressed. Oh, Billy Koch, I forgot about him.
Right.
Shrunk. Yeah, I know how you feel, man.
It's terrible getting old. It really is. Hey, Simon, we've been talking about the Jays, obviously, throughout the entire playoffs, and I can tell you that it's the number one talker here in Nova Scotia today. I would imagine being in the center of the universe. I mean, Toronto. It's a bit crazy there right now.
You and I are probably old enough to remember the 90s.
Yes, sir.
Here in Toronto, and it's definitely the same kind of. Ever since, especially maybe not when they clinched the American League East, but especially when they beat the Yankees and they had those big moments, right? The Vladdy moment, the Grand Slam, and it really started to pick up in the city. And then, of course, the way they won the ALCS and the George Springer dinger and everything that happened, yeah, it is Jays insanity everywhere. Everyone's wearing something Jays. It's Go Jays goes, and it's very much like the 90s. It's awesome. You don't see it very often. And the fact that the Raptors have their home opener at the same time tonight, and they've moved the game up earlier, and the Leafs are playing at 5 p.m. local tomorrow to not clash. Like, that kind of stuff never happens. That's where we're at right now.
All right, Simon, let's take a look at what we're going to field tonight. A lot of speculation, a lot of talk about Bo Bichette. It's almost a game time decision, right?
They're supposed to name the rosters any minute. Like, at the top of the hour at 10 a.m. Eastern is when the rosters are due, and then we'll see some kind of drop. I'm literally scrolling down my timeline to see if there's any news. And, looking at Bo working out, he seemed good. The question is, they've been hitting so well without him. Where do you put him? Do you start him? Do you have him as DH? If you DH, then George Springer's got to go in the field. You have to protect Springer's knee because he's clutch in October. So many guys have contributed that they've done this without Bo. Also noteworthy, he's been practicing this week at second base, not shortstop, which means no matter what, Andres Jimenez will stay at short. So it's not an easy, let's just drop him back in the lineup. Forget about the fact he hasn't played 6 weeks, but the fact this team has been so good, scoring 6.5 runs a game, like, do you mess up the chemistry if he comes back? It's quite the quandary. It's a good problem to have in one way, but it's incredible that we're having these discussions in late October.
Simon, Jay's management trying to warn us against this David versus Goliath things. We know the story about the Dodgers. We know the payroll. We know the 4 aces in the starting rotation. We know Shohei Ohtani. We got all the stories. Is this an insurmountable summit to reach, or can the Jays do this?
They can absolutely win. And I think it would be easy to look how deep the Yankees lineup was. Everyone thought the Mariners were the favorites. The Jays have been underdogs all the way through. I think when you look at how the Jays lineup has been 1 to 9 in the order, and how, big names have come through, they can do it. They can absolutely do it. Yes, their starting pitching is lights out, and yes, Ohtani is a unicorn. But if you get past that, you never know. They have to play it on the field. It's a cliche, but they do. They absolutely have a chance.
44,770 fans are going to be behind him, I can tell you that.
It's been, I don't know if it comes across on TV, but it has been incredible. I get goosebumps watching the footage of George Springer's Game 7 home run this week with just the crowd noise, and you can feel everything shake. So, the Jays, before this ascension this year, their home run before that was the renovations to the park.
Right.
Such a much nicer ballpark to go to, much more fan-friendly. Everyone feels a bit closer. The crowd's into it. They were getting decent crowds even when they were bad last year. So, the foundation for the atmosphere of the ballpark was laid with the renovations and how much better it looks and feels. And now you've got everything happening right now. It's going to be amazing at the park tonight.
All right, Simon. Rubber on the road. Prediction for the series.
Jays in 7.
You heard it here first. Mr. Bennett, I appreciate your time, sir. Go Jays, go.
Take care, pal.
That is the voice of sports in the morning here on 95.7 News Radio. That's Simon Bennett. He says Jays in 7. We're going to ask you what you think when we open up the telephone lines off the top of the show. We do know that there are other sports happening in and around our part of the world throughout the World Series. World Series Game 1 goes tonight right here on 95.7 News Radio. And don't forget, and I know I say this a lot, but I just want to be absolutely clear that we can carry the game over the air on a radio. We cannot stream the game. We haven't been able to stream a Major League Baseball game for many years. It's a rule that's handed down by Major League Baseball. We are unable to stream the game. So if you are listening to us right now on a smart speaker or on Seeker or wherever it is that you're finding us, that's not a radio, you will not hear the game tonight. But if you have a radio in your car, in your house, that's where you're going to hear the game tonight. We're going to do the game at 9 o'clock tonight. We're going to do the game tomorrow at 9 o'clock. But then you're saying, well, Dan, the Mooseheads are in town. And that is, in fact, the case. And it's not just any game Saturday night. It's Cape Breton, which is always amped up. And it's D&D Appreciation Night, too, which is important, I think, to get out there. So, on Saturday night, because there is a conflict, the Moose game, I think, starts at 6:30 with the puck drop at 7. There's going to be a bit of an overlap there. So like we've done throughout the Major League Baseball playoff extravaganza, we're going to split things up. So we'll start the game, the Mooseheads game, on both the radio and on the stream. And then when the Jays game starts, we're going to switch to the baseball game on your radio, and the Mooseheads game will continue on the stream. So you'll be able to listen to it on the radio. You'll be able to stream the Mooseheads game. It'll be the best of both worlds for you. And we appreciate your patience. I know that some of you are looking forward to the Moose game, but I know many more of you are looking forward to the Blue Jays game. Also, there is a home game that's happening on Saturday. If you want to go, we have a pair of tickets. It's Cape Breton, folks. It doesn't get any better than that, does it? Not to mention D&D Appreciation Night, not to mention the fun and frivolity that happens. If you want to go Saturday night, here's your opportunity. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Again, 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. A pair of tickets to caller number 5. Lines are open now. We're going to stop. We're going to take a break for the news on the other side of it. It's time for the Friday Free-for-All. Your chance to talk about whatever it is you want to talk about. We talked about driving this week. We talked about short-term leases. We talked about rental. We talked about affordability. We're talking about the Blue Jays. It's your chance to talk about whatever it is on your mind. But I will ask you to make a prediction in this series that kicks off tonight between the Toronto Blue Jays and the Los Angeles Dodgers. Who's going to win the World Series? 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. The Friday Free-for-All Open Hour after the news. All right, we're back. This is the Todd Veinotte Show. It's Friday, and that means it's time now for the Friday Free-for-All. Often imitated, never duplicated. And we're looking forward to getting your comments on whatever it is on your mind. That's the beauty of this format. And this hour, it's your chance to talk about whatever you want to talk about. We talked about a lot of different subjects this week, right? And some of them more popular than others. A lot of you taking exception to my thoughts on the way that we fix aggressive driving and bad driving here in Nova Scotia. If you didn't get a chance to get in on that conversation and you want to continue it, here's your opportunity, 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. We talked about affordability. We talked about rents. We talked about short-term leases. Lots of stuff out there for you to talk about. But I think the country's talking today about the Toronto Blue Jays and the start of the World Series. Game 1 goes tonight, as you heard in the news. Tickets, not cheap. Holy smokes, they're expensive. Ouch. But anyway, it's free to listen to it on the radio, and you can do that tonight right here on 95.7 News Radio, starting at 9 o'clock. Your thoughts on the Toronto Blue Jays? What's going to happen in the series? It seems that people are trying to hedge their bets a little bit. Have you got that vibe from our recent bevy of guests here that we've talked about? Everybody's cheering for the Jays, but nobody wants to make a real solid prediction on it. I was just getting a coffee to get ready for the open hour here, and I walked by our sales assistant, who is a devout, it doesn't get any bigger Blue Jay fan than our friend Janet. And Janet is pretty confident in the Blue Jays. She said that she thinks the Jays are going to win in 5. So that's a significant statement to say. What do you think? What's going to happen? Where are the Blue Jays going to go from here? Do they win the World Series? And in how many games? I said I would make my prediction, and I will do that. I think that if you take it and you look at it on paper, like Simon said, the Blue Jays are in tough with the Los Angeles Dodgers. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Dodgers' starting pitching rotation are 4 aces. Take any of those pitchers and you put them on another team, they're their number 1 starter. They have the highest payroll in baseball. Pitching tends to win championships. Am I going through the whole list of stuff? That all being said, the Yankees series, the Mariners series, Blue Jays batters have made good pitchers look terrible. And I think that that's going to continue here in the World Series. I am still concerned about the Blue Jays bullpen. We've seen flashes of brilliance. We've seen absolute terrible results from the bullpen. We're putting game 1 on a 22-year-old starter, which I think, by the way, is the right decision. I think that was a smart decision by John Schneider. John Schneider is taking a lot of heat over the playoffs about his handling of pitching. All of that stuff being said, and maybe it's my hometown bias, but I think the Toronto Blue Jays are going to win the World Series. But I don't think it's going to be easy. And I think it's going to go down to the full length of the contest. I think we're going to see a Game 7, and with the Jays' record getting them the home field advantage, and again, I apologize, I stand corrected. I was in error thinking that it was still the All-Star game that's decided that. It's not. It was their record. I think it's going to be Jays in 7. So you can mark that one down. You can save the tape. You can do what sports fans do, and you can call me wrong if and when it happens, but I think that the Jays have made good pitching look bad. And that's why I think they're going to win the World Series. That or whatever it is on your mind. Donald Trump certainly making headlines today with his, can I call it a tantrum? It's wild to me that the leader of the free world, if we can even call him that anymore, sees a television commercial on TV, grabs his phone, which apparently only has capital letters on it, and just can completely change things with a social media post. He's been doing it for a long time now. I guess I shouldn't be surprised. But your thoughts on the latest salvo from Donald Trump ending negotiations because of a commercial that Doug Ford paid $75 million to air in the United States. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Let's go to the phones. We welcome Dan to the show. Dan, how are you?
Hi, sir. Hi. In retrospect, I guess that if they could do it over again, you think they would have run that commercial?
100%. 100 times out of 100.
Oh. Well, I don't think that what happened was the intended result, though, right?
Well, I to be honest with you, Dan, I think it was. I think that it was a backdoor way to take a pretty big shot at Donald Trump.
Yeah, I mean, but the could they have predicted this type of reaction? I mean, their negotiations are.
Well, can you ever predict the reaction from Donald Trump? Really?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if they had used one of our prime ministers in a commercial, that would sting, I guess, for us.
But would Mark Carney cancel all trade talks because of it?
No.
Probably not, right?
No, but I'm not a Trump fan. In fact, I was hoping that Kamala would win.
Mm-hmm.
It's clear that on election night, everything is determined on. I mean, like a million things just are set in place by what happens on election night. But anyway, for the baseball thing, I don't really follow it too much, but I think it might be over in 6 games.
For who?
I think Toronto might. I think they might get it.
Dan, I appreciate the call. Have a great weekend, sir.
Okay, sir.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. So Dan is on the Jays side for that, says 6 games. What do you say? 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Before we take the break, I'm going to go to our resident baseball expert who's looking at me now like I've said something wrong. Hello, Vanessa Vandenez.
What did I do?
You're not obviously the biggest baseball fan in the world, but your thoughts on the World Series and who's going to win?
Oh, no, I'm not jinxing anything.
See?
I'm sorry.
Come
No. I have way too many friends and family who are Blue Jays fans,
right,
who the last thing they need me to be doing is predicting a game that I don't understand anyway.
Right.
So no, thank you.
So I guess the other question then is, are you going to watch it? Are you going to watch it?
Of course,
right?
yeah.
All right, we're back. This is the Todd Veinotte Show. It's Friday, and that means it's time now for the Friday Free-for-All. Often imitated, never duplicated, and we're looking forward to getting your comments on whatever it is on your mind. That's the beauty of this format, and this hour, it's your chance to talk about whatever you want to talk about. We talked about a lot of different subjects this week, right? And some of them more popular than others. A lot of you taking exception to my thoughts on the way that we fix aggressive driving and bad driving here in Nova Scotia. If you didn't get a chance to get in on that conversation and you want to continue it, here's your opportunity, 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. We talked about affordability. We talked about rents. We talked about short-term leases. Lots of stuff out there for you to talk about. But I think the country's talking today about the Toronto Blue Jays and the start of the World Series. Game 1 goes tonight, as you heard in the news. Tickets, not cheap. Holy smokes, they're expensive. Ouch. But anyway, it's free to listen to it on the radio, and you can do that tonight right here on 95.7 News Radio, starting at 9 o'clock. Your thoughts on the Toronto Blue Jays? What's going to happen in the series? It seems that people are trying to hedge their bets a little bit. Have you got that vibe from our recent bevy of guests here that we've talked about? Everybody's cheering for the Jays, but nobody wants to make a real solid prediction on it. I was just getting a coffee to get ready for the open hour here, and I walked by our sales assistant, who is a devout, it doesn't get any bigger Blue Jay fan than our friend Janet. And Janet is pretty confident in the Blue Jays. She said that she thinks the Jays are going to win in 5. So that's a significant statement to say. What do you think? What's going to happen? Where are the Blue Jays going to go from here? Do they win the World Series? And in how many games? I said I would make my prediction, and I will do that. I think that if you take it and you look at it on paper, like Simon said, the Blue Jays are in tough with the Los Angeles Dodgers. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Dodgers' starting pitching rotation are 4 aces. Take any of those pitchers and you put them on another team, they're their number 1 starter. They have the highest payroll in baseball. Pitching tends to win championships. Am I going through the whole list of stuff? That all being said, the Yankees series, the Mariners series, Blue Jays batters have made good pitchers look terrible. And I think that that's going to continue here in the World Series. I'm still concerned about the Blue Jays bullpen. We've seen flashes of brilliance. We've seen absolute terrible results from the bullpen. We're putting game 1 on a 22-year-old starter, which I think, by the way, is the right decision. I think that was a smart decision by John Schneider. John Schneider's taking a lot of heat over the playoffs about his handling of pitching. All of that stuff being said, and maybe it's my hometown bias, but I think the Toronto Blue Jays are going to win the World Series. But I don't think it's going to be easy. And I think it's going to go down to the full length of the contest. I think we're going to see a Game 7, and with the Jays' record getting them the home field advantage, and I apologize, I stand corrected. I was in error thinking that it was still the All-Star game that's decided that. It's not. It was their record. I think it's going to be Jays in 7. So you can mark that one down. You can save the tape. You can do what sports fans do, and you can call me wrong if and when it happens. But I think that the Jays have made good pitching look bad, and that's why I think they're going to win the World Series. That or whatever it is on your mind. Donald Trump certainly making headlines today with his, can I call it a tantrum? It's wild to me that the leader of the free world, if we can even call him that anymore, sees a television commercial on TV, grabs his phone, which apparently only has capital letters on it, and just can completely change things with it with a social media post. He's been doing it for a long time now. I guess I shouldn't be surprised. But your thoughts on the latest salvo from Donald Trump ending negotiations because of a commercial that Doug Ford paid $75 million to air in the United States. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Let's go to the phones. We welcome Dan to the show. Dan, how are you?
Hi, sir. Hi. In retrospect, I guess that if they could do it over again, you think they would have run that commercial?
100%. 100 times out of 100.
Oh. Well, I don't think that what happened was the intended result, though, right?
Well, I to be honest with you, Dan, I think it was. I think that it was a backdoor way to take a pretty big shot at Donald Trump.
Yeah, I mean, but could they have predicted this type of reaction? I mean, their negotiations are.
Well, can you ever predict the reaction from Donald Trump? Really?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if if they had used one of our prime ministers in a commercial, that would sting, I guess, for us.
But would Mark Carney cancel all trade talks because of it?
No,
probably not, right?
No, but I'm not a Trump fan. In fact, I was hoping that Kamala would win.
Mm-hmm.
It's clear that on election night, everything is determined on. Like a million things just are set in place by what happens on election night. But anyway, for the baseball thing, I don't really follow it too much, but I think it might be over in 6 games.
For who?
I think Toronto might. I think they might get it.
Dan, I appreciate the call. Have a great weekend, sir.
Okay, sir.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. So Dan is on the Jays side for that, says 6 games. What do you say? 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Before we take the break, I'm going to go to our resident baseball expert, who's looking at me now like I've said something wrong. Hello, Vanessa Vandenaz.
What did I do?
You're not obviously the biggest baseball fan in the world, but your thoughts on the World Series and who's going to win?
Oh, no, I'm not jinxing anything.
See?
I'm sorry.
Come
No. I have way too many friends and family who are Blue Jays fans,
right,
who the last thing they need me to be doing is predicting a game that I don't understand anyway.
Right.
So no, thank you.
So I guess the other question then is, are you going to watch it? Are you going to watch it?
Of course,
right?
Yeah. I think I'm not the biggest sports fan. Usually I don't watch a lot of sports, but I really love the energy of when people are gathering together to watch a game.
44,770.
Absolutely. So
right?
I love that part of it, but I do not follow it in any way.
So, sideline Jays fan, we'll call you.
Yes, absolutely.
I tried, folks. I really did. Thanks, Vanessa. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. The Friday free-for-all continues right after this break. Welcome back. This is the Friday Free-for-All, your chance to talk about whatever it is on your mind. Let's get right to the phones, and we welcome David to the show. David, how are you?
Hi, Dan. Yeah, not bad. I listened to your show earlier in the week, and you had a guest on talking about the price of rental housing in the HRM.
Sure.
And myself, I tend to actually blame the zoning bylaws, which sort of prioritize large-scale developments. You know, when we saw the accelerator fund come in, the sort of maximum height went from 30 to 40 stories. But out of a recent example in Vancouver, we can see that such developments are the reason for high prices. I think they're saying that, 80% of the new condos being built are unaffordable by people simply due to the high construction costs of the buildings associated, with the height and the size. You got to pour a lot of concrete and stuff like that. So, basically, as a result for zoning bylaws, we're not producing the type of housing we need, which is, more affordable, cheaper sort of rental housing. And, perhaps if they're fundamentally not serving, producing the housing we need to change them. And, things we could focus on is infilling, what they call gentle density, mid-rise construction using wood, and all of those sort of options producing cheaper homes, which can then, be rented for lower prices.
You're not a big fan of density then, David. That seems to be the buzzword these days, is making areas more dense.
Yeah, and no, I'm not actually against it in principle. It's just that it doesn't produce the affordable housing, just because when you go that high, you have to, you have to engineer the buildings to a much higher degree to, take all the weight and stuff like that. So it's just sort of fundamentally the cost of producing these per unit makes them out of reach of most people, and that's why we're seeing the sort of new developments coming online, or those, single bedroom $2,300, $3,000 kind of price range, because that's what they have to rent them for to, earn back the return on investment kind of thing. So, within the city, there are plenty of options, reuse, repurposing, renovations, infilling, all this kind of thing. So it's sort of, I think we just sort of need to change the style of homes we're building in order to serve that sort of more affordable rental market that, many people would find themselves in.
Prediction on the Jays series tonight?
You know what? I don't really follow baseball all that much. I'm more of a Star Trek fan. So, but yeah, no, I'm excited nonetheless. You know,
Fair
it's great
enough.
for Canada to be in there and stuff. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed from the Jays, kind of like what you're saying that, you know, yeah, they're on paper, but they got this far. And so there's always a wild card. And that's why we like sports. So yeah, anything can happen. Let's keep our fingers crossed.
Live long and prosper, my friend.
Thank you. Regards.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. At least he's honest, right? 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. To the phones, we welcome Alan to the show. Alan, how are you?
Not too bad, Dan. The first topic I'd like to touch base with is the rent controls.
Sure.
You were the other day you had Nicole made some good points on just issues with I guess with the bureaucracy of the city and the not-for-profit housing, those issues. And I think that just points out that there's issues on all sides of the spectrum. In other words, whether it's for-profit, not-for-profit, and there needs to be better oversight from the existing bodies that we have. We were a small landlord for a period of time, and we tried to rent to people that were in trouble and in issues because we had a little duplex in the North End, and so we could charge rents that were reasonable and still not be subsidizing them.
Okay.
Unfortunately, what we ended up with was about 30 to 40% of the people that we rented to ended up costing us money. We were basically subsidizing their bad behavior. And I understand the point previously made that it's not a large percentage of the, let's say, 300,000 rental units in HRM or in the peninsula or whatever that figure represents. But where the problem lies is not with the $2,000 or $3,000 or $4,000 a month units. It's with the low-end units where you typically have more issues. And oftentimes that's because the renters themselves have more issues going on in their lives. It's not necessarily, something that they're doing. It might be something that's within their lives. So I think that's one of the issues where you see people trying to avoid low rental units simply because there's more problems with it. But what I wanted to touch base with was the idea of rent controls. You had mentioned that you'd always gotten, in your rents where you're renting, you'd always gotten the bump up to the maximum of whatever's allowed.
Every time.
Decades ago, and I'm talking back in the 70s, a family friend of ours was hired by the National NDP Party to study the effects of rent controls. He did a national study, and he also looked at international examples and whatnot. And his conclusion was that it was counterproductive, that rent controls lead to higher rents than jurisdictions without rent controls. And I'll get into why that is in a second. But the upshot to it was that the NDP, after receiving that report, ignored it and shelved it and never made it public.
Yep.
Because it went against their platform.
For sure.
And that's a very unfortunate situation of ideology over trumping reality. And I use the word Trump in all its senses. Anyway, because people do things that don't work, but they do them because they've got an ideology that they're pushing forward with. But the reason that rent controls don't work is exactly what you've experienced. If you're a landlord and you know that you can only deal with a 5% increase unless you have an extraordinary thing where you can go and make a case and spend legal dollars and whatnot in putting your case forward, et cetera, and take time to get it done, then you don't dare, if you've got a year where your rents are covering all of your expenses and giving you a return that's reasonable, that's as good as what you'd get if you parked that money in the bank and didn't have all the headaches to deal with. Mm-hmm. You don't dare not increase your rents, because you know that if in the next year, if you've got an unforeseen expense, you're not going to be able to recover it. You're not allowed to recover it by the government. You're the one that has to eat that, not the tenant. And as a result, if you've got a maximum, that maximum is going to be hit by virtually all landlords all of the time. If you don't have a maximum, then landlords are going to deal with what the market will bear and what they can find. My parents were landlords for many years, and they always charged just below market rates. And that way they never had to find a tenant, because any time a tenant was moving, they would have friends that wanted to move in. And so there's different drivers than what a lot of people think. A lot of people go one side or the other. They go, oh, the tenants are all crap. There's some tenants that are crap. Most tenants are great. Or the landlords are all crap. Some landlords are crap. Most landlords are fine. They're just trying to provide things. If there weren't landlords, everybody would have to be a homeowner. So we have to recognize that. It's just like if there weren't owners of businesses, everybody would have to own their own business.
Right. And
there's a lot of people that aren't capable of doing that for a ton of reasons. Anyway, that's my stuff on that. With regard to Trump and
very quickly, Alan, I'm getting out of time here. Yep.
Yeah, sorry. Unfortunately, I believe we started that by elbows up and with Ford talking very aggressively towards Trump. And I don't mean that we should roll over like a cat or a dog and lie on our back with our paws in the air like Carney has seemed to with Trump all along when he meets with him. But the fact of the matter is that Trump is a New York hustler / street bully at heart, and you don't deal with them. You don't get any place with them by being aggressive. You deal with them by letting them rant, run out of air, and then say, okay, let's talk about the issues that we have in common and how we fix those issues.
All right.
You let them run out of air. You don't give them more fuel. You don't throw gasoline on the fire.
Okay, appreciate the call, Alan.
Anyway,
have a good weekend.
You too. Take
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Very quickly, a couple emails before we get to the break here. This one is from Chad. Says, Dan, diehard Blue Jays fan here, Kawasaki and Barfield jerseys owner. That's going back a year or two. Let's beat real, though. He says Dodgers in 5. This one from Patrick says the Jays will win in 6 games. Dodgers starting pitching was absolutely otherworldly in the Phillies and Brewers series. We're talking peak Pedro Martinez and Greg Maddux level of pitching excellence. No doubt they're talented starting rotation, but they can't sustain that level of performance. They simply aren't that good. Regression is coming. Combine that with the fact the Blue Jays were only performing as expected offensively, save for Vlad Jr., who's hitting out of his mind. I believe there's a lot of upside to Jays offense. Finally, defense doesn't go into slumps, and the Jays are one of the best defensive teams out there. The ability to limit opponent scoring bodes well, gives great confidence they can take the series. That from Patrick. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. The Friday free-for-all continues after the news.
Axe.
So listening to the news there from Blake at 11:30, and of course the big news story today is this ongoing, I don't even know what to call it anymore, with Donald Trump and Doug Ford and this commercial and Ronald Reagan and Mark Carney and everything else, and Donald Trump suggesting that that Doug Ford put this $75 million advertising campaign out to influence the Supreme Court decision that's coming down on trade. I don't know about you, but as much as some of you out there are big fans of Doug Ford, and I know that the Premier of Nova Scotia and Doug Ford have a pretty good relationship, I really think that the president's giving him a little too much credit. I don't think that he would even consider that to be able to influence a Supreme Court decision with an advertising campaign. If the U.S. Supreme Court was so easily influenced by advertising campaigns, I mean, the Democrats have been doing it nonstop, right? Do you think that Doug Ford was sitting around in his office in Toronto and saying, hey, I bet you if we put a campaign out there that's going to change the U.S. Supreme Court's decision? Come on, Donald. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. To the phones, we welcome Joe. Joe, how are you?
I'm not bad. How are you?
Good. Your thoughts on the World Series?
Well, I've been a baseball fan for over 70 years.
Mm-hmm.
And from the first time I heard a baseball game on the radio, I've always been a Yankee fan.
Oh, dear. I'm sorry.
I did like the Expos, but I've never had any use for the Blue Jays, ever. And it's not so much because of the team, it's because of the announcers. When I watch a Blue Jay game, I have to turn the sound off. Everybody's an all-star, and everybody's going to the Hall of Fame.
Well, the Yankee announcers are pretty good at that, too.
Well, nowhere near, I don't think. And I believe, with all the hype that's going on now, I mean, let's look at it. The Ontario, center of the universe.
Right.
Yes, we're told.
Yep.
Blue Jays losers, Argonauts losers, Raptors losers, Maple Leafs losers. They're dying for a winner. I understand that. And I wouldn't mind them winning. But if they win, can you imagine what it's going to be like on television and radio the rest of the winter? All we're going to hear and see is more Joe Carter home runs and Springer home runs. So that's my hype on that. It's just that they're starving for a winner.
They certainly are. I don't think there's any doubt. I mean, do you remember when the Raptors won their title? It went crazy.
They went crazy, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I think the Dodgers will probably win this in 5.
Oh my goodness!
But should the Blue Jays win, can you imagine the hype that's going to be on all the networks for the winter? And we won't be watching hockey. We'll be watching highlights of the Toronto Blue Jays winning the World Series. So
Toronto does get excited about things, Joe. I'll give you that.
Yeah, and they're a good baseball team, but the announcers got to cool it just a little bit. I know who's paying their checks. I guess it's Rogers, but so I understand they got to be pro Blue Jays, but it's gone too far. It's just when I got to turn their television down to watch a ball game, it's pretty sad. Anyway, that's my rant for today.
Have a great weekend, Joe. Appreciate the call.
Okay, bye-bye.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. I will agree to an extent with Joe that when you watch a home broadcast of sports these days, gone are these this down the line non-biased opinion, right? Everybody's kind of got that homer mentality. I've watched Yankee broadcast, Madison Square Garden. I've watched NSN, the Boston Red Sox team, right? It's not just a Blue Jays problem, and it's not just a baseball problem, right? Watch some of the NFL out there. It'll blow your mind. Anyway, thanks for the call, Joe. I appreciate it. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Kevin, how are you?
Good morning, Dan. How are you, bud?
Good. Your thoughts on the World Series?
Well, I'll tell you first that I saw the first game the Jays ever played.
In the
so
snow.
I go back to 1977.
Yep. Exhibition
Chicago
Stadium,
White
right?
Sox. Yeah. Snow all over the field.
Yep.
And a guy by the name of Doug Aalt hit a couple of home runs.
He did.
Anyway, the good news, I'll give you the good and the bad news. The good news first, I think what the Jays are doing is good for baseball in Canada.
Oh, no doubt.
I think it's generating a lot of excitement. I think it's generating a lot of interest. And I think overall it's a very good thing.
The bad news?
Here's the bad news, Dan.
Uh-oh.
I'm a Dodger fan.
Oh, Kevin.
No. Realistically, looking at the situation, it's going to be LA in 6.
You think?
They've got the pitching, they've got the depth, they've got the experience, and right now they're playing the best ball of the year.
Blue Jays have made good pitching. Blue Jays have made good pitching look bad all playoff. I'll give the Blue Jays that.
It's not going to be. It's going to be tough, and it's not going to be a walkaway. But I will tell you right now, LA in 6. You can bet the mortgage on it.
Well, there you go, Kevin. I don't know if I do that, but anyway, appreciate your opinion.
Have a good weekend.
You too. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. For goodness sakes, don't bet the mortgage. Let's not even get down that road. I mentioned before we get back to the phones, that when you listen to odds, you see the odds that, this team's favored by X amount, that I don't ever listen to the odds makers, right? Because odds makers have a job to do, and they may give you an idea of where things are laying when it comes to the people that are putting money on stuff, but I don't ever really trust that. And I got an email from Ed that kind of hits the nail on the head with this. It says, "Hey, Dan, I'm not a sports bettor, but from what I've learned, odds makers, bookmakers, primarily set odds to balance the book, not to reflect the true probability of outcome. Bookmakers aim for profit regardless of which team wins. They set initial odds that roughly match real probabilities, then adjust them based on how people bet. The goal is to have roughly equal money on each side so that payouts to winners are covered by losses from losers, plus a built-in margin. They call it juice or vig. Therefore, odds just reflect the opinions of armchair quarterbacks who are willing to put their money where their mouths are." And he goes on to say, well, wonderful show. Then he says, "Go Vanessa." So we have to put that out there, and then go Jays. I agree that that's the idea behind setting a line. That's what it is, to protect the book, right? It's not to give you an idea as to where the money's going, but you can extrapolate it, because if they have to change the line, then it seems the money is going on one side or the other. But I just do not trust odd makers. I just don't. And I've been burnt before, and I've learned from my mistakes. I don't bet much at all. I'll bet a nickel or a quarter here, and I'm talking the actual cents, not the betting terms for nickels and quarters. I'm not a gambler, or not a sports bettor, and I won't do that. But anyway, that's what the odds makers are, and I appreciate Ed for sending us that email. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Greg is on the line. Greg, how are you?
Hey, how you doing, Dan?
Good. Your thoughts on the World Series?
By the way, you're doing a great job, my friend.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Your thoughts on the World Series?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I mean, much as I love the Jays, and I was there in 92, 93 and saw it, I don't know. I think, the LA Dodgers, they've been there before. You look at the pitching staff.
Right.
There's a guy by the name of Shohei Ohtani.
Yeah,
and,
he's kind of crazy.
We came within a hair.
Right.
We came within a hair having him.
It was very close.
That's the whole life. Very close. I don't know. I love the Jays, what they did, but I do not think they're going to overtake the pitching staff that the Dodgers have. But Blake Snell is just, this guy's Cy Young Award winner, and you got Ohtani in there, and then you got Glasnow, and then Freddie Freeman. Well, his mother was Canadian, by the way.
Yep.
And and then there's Hernandez, who used to play with Toronto. Up and down the line, I don't know. Much as I'd like them to win, but I don't think. I think this time it might be just maybe more than they bit up, more than they can chew, because I think the Dodgers are just that good.
Appreciate your comments, Greg. You gonna watch the game, obviously, or listen to it?
No. See, my wife said either I watch the baseball game or the hockey game. Take your pick.
Right.
Now, what do you think?
Oh, I do both.
No, I can't. No, I won't go that road.
Have a good weekend, Greg.
See you, Dan.
902-405-6000 and 1-877-801-8255. Oh, that would be a tough decision, wouldn't it? Hockey, baseball. I think I'd probably choose baseball just because it's the World Series. We're going to keep those lines open for another 15 minutes here, folks. 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Taking a break. The Friday Free-For-All continues right on the other side. Welcome back to Friday Free-For-All continues. As I said earlier, often imitated, never duplicated. This is the best Friday Free-For-All. I will tell you that from my experience. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Let's welcome first-time caller Ken to the show. Ken, are you there?
How you doing today?
I am well.
That's great. A beautiful day for October.
It is. What's your thoughts?
My thought is, how come we can't buy power from anyone else but Nova Scotia Power?
I don't think it's available anywhere else, is it? Like, don't think there's anybody that's making it here in Nova Scotia.
Oh, isn't there a way for the Premier to look at that everything else in life we can buy from different people. Why can't we buy power?
Well, that's just it. And I remember it was Stephen McNeil that ran a campaign on breaking up the monopoly of Nova Scotia Power, and he was unsuccessful in trying to do that.
It seems funny, though. That's the only thing in life we can't have an option who we buy it from.
Would be nice, wouldn't it?
It sure would be. And this is probably why our power bills are the way they are. Nova Scotia Power, you ever look and see how many vehicles they have on the road?
They're a busy, big company, I'll tell you that much.
They're a very, very big company. That's my thought. That's what I wanted to talk a little bit about today.
I appreciate it, Ken. Have a great weekend.
You as well. Bye.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Got an email from a listener who said, Blue Jays, ugh, is there anything else going on, ? Well, I think it's kind of what everybody's talking about today. And that's what the open hour is about, isn't it not? 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Let's go to Jim. Jim, how are you?
Good morning, Dan. How are you?
Good. Your thoughts on the World Series?
I don't think the Blue Jays got a hope in hell.
Oh, my goodness. That's not very
hope
positive,
they win.
is it?
No, well, I mean, it's positive for the Dodgers.
Sure, if
But
you're a
I'm
Dodger
positive. I'm not a Dodger fan. I'm a Blue Jays fan. But the Dodgers, I think, are the best team ever assembled.
Oh, that's a statement. There'll be lots of people
Yeah.
at those Yankee teams that will disagree with that.
So of course they will. But I believe the Dodgers are paying their pitching staff over $1 billion.
Yeah, it's they do have the biggest payroll in baseball, and it's astronomical. It's actually kind of silly, to be honest.
Yeah, and they mentioned Ohtani and Snell and Glasgow, but they got Kershaw and they got Sasaki and they got all kinds of pitching.
And I hear Kershaw is going to be in the roster for the World Series too, so we may see him.
Yeah, and the Blue Jays might have Bo back, but he might need a game or two to get on track there.
That's a tough one, isn't it? Like, he's our best hitter, but he hasn't played in so long.
Yeah,
Right.
and I think if the Blue Jays win a game, it'll be a feather in their cap because this Dodger team is too good.
I appreciate
That's
the
all
call,
I got
Jim.
to say on that, buddy.
Have a good one.
Thank you. Have a good weekend.
Enjoy
Bye-bye.
the games. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Let's welcome Terry Lee to the program. Terry Lee, how are you?
Good, thank you. And how about yourself?
I am well. Your thoughts on the World Series?
Well, I personally think they are going to do great. I'm completely shocked by all the negativity sometimes, but I'm really proud of them. And I think this year, compared to other years, they've showed that they know how to really play as a team this year. And I'm really proud of them, and I'm proud to be Canadian. And, you know, they are the underdogs, but you just never say never. I have faith in them, and I think it's going to be a wonderful World Series.
Been the underdog for the entire playoff. They're underdogged all season.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. And I think they're going to come together as a team, as it was shown. I mean, they worked hard to get here.
Right.
So they had their down times. They beat other good teams. So I truly believe in the Blue Jays. I remember watching it years ago when they won. I love listening to it on the radio, just like the old days. That's the most exciting thing ever is listening to the ball games on the radio. I love it. And I'm just want to say, go Blue Jays, go. And you have a great weekend.
You too, Terry Lee. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. It's, I think I said it in my prediction. I don't think it's going to be easy at all. But, and there's the adage in baseball, and baseball purists will tell you that good pitching wins championships, just like defense wins championships in football. Good pitching wins championships in baseball, keeps people off the base pads, keeps the ball in the park. But all of that being said, we weren't supposed to beat the Yankees because the Yankees rotation was going to blow us out of the water. That didn't happen, right? The Mariners, they were going to blow us out of the water. It wasn't going to even be close by some of the emails I got from you folks. Tougher than many had predicted. Game 7s can go any way, but the Jays did come out on top. And I think that Game 7 win and that bullpen game, I think it was in the Yankee series when they brought all the bullpen pitchers in. I think those two things are going to be on the minds of the Blue Jays, and I think that I think they're going to be in this series. And like I said, I think it's going to not be easy. I think it's going to go 7 games, but I think the Jays are going to win. Jim, how are you?
Not too bad. I'm with you all the way.
There he is. What's your thoughts?
I remember
5 games, 6 games?
I remember 7. I remember the 1972 hockey game between Russia and Canada.
Right. The Summit Series.
Yeah, and everybody had the Russians going to win that game because they were such a powerful hockey team. And, I mean, we were glued to our radio and TV sets and everything. The Blue Jays have the momentum. They've come a long way, and they're going to have 2 or 3 highlighters that are going to hit these runs that count. I have a personal – I don't follow baseball much, but anything that versus Canada versus the U.S., I'm there. But I can tell you, Dan, that I don't think those big pitchers, those billion or $1 million pitchers in the Dodgers they're going to walk a lot of our big hitters like Guevara, I can't pronounce his name, but they're going the guy from the Dominican Republic. They're going to make him walk through. Yeah, they're going to make him walk. They're not going to let him hit.
Well, I've been saying that all playoff. I can't believe that people are actually pitching to Guerrero Jr. because he's making them all look bad.
I agree. Right? I agree, and they're going to avoid our top pitchers because we got such a great team this year. We got the fans behind them.
Right.
And for those fans that have called in and said they're Blue Jay fans and then say they don't think they're going to win, you're not a Blue Jay fan. Yeah. So let's get together and pull behind the Blue Jays.
Jim,
I'm with you 100%.
I appreciate the call, sir.
Hey, you're welcome.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Email from Tom says, hey, Dan, if the Jays win the World Series, I'd love to hear listeners' opinions on whether or not they'd go to the White House if invited. I don't know if it's mandatory, if the president has to do that. But I think, given the current temperature between our two countries, and I know that the Blue Jays are loaded with American players. I understand that. But they are still Canada's team. I wouldn't even be surprised if he didn't invite them. This email from Mark says, as much as it pains me to say this, Dodgers in 5, the only way I see the Jays winning this is if the Jays pitchers play extraordinarily and the 8 and 9 strength batters keep the bats going. They've been pretty good throughout the playoffs. There's a lot of people that didn't know any of these names. Like this isn't the 93 team. That 93 team was loaded with all-stars and loaded with big-name ball players. This isn't the same. This isn't the case. Bichette's a big name. Springer, big name, nearing the end of his career. And, of course, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is the big name for the Blue Jays, right? But and this is going to sound cliche-ish, but I think that team are playing for the crest on their chest and not for the names on the back. And I think with a lineup like the Dodgers, I don't know if that's the case. Another thing I want you to consider is that the Dodgers swept the Brewers in, I think it was 4 games, right? Have been off for a long time. And that will be interesting to see if there's any kind of rust there for game 1. And maybe if there's enough rust and we can hang that first win on them, then the pressure mounts, right? The Jays got nothing to lose. They really don't. They're not supposed to be there. They're the underdog. Last word today goes to Mike. Mike, how are you?
I'm good, Dan. Want to talk about Nova Scotia Power, but
sure.
the Blue Jays, I got to talk about them. Everyone counted them out. Like you said, they weren't going to beat the Yankees or the Mariners. But you know what? People counted them out when they went on this run. Like everyone said, oh, this won't last. They're not going to make the playoffs.
Right.
And so far, they've been proving everyone wrong. So keep it going, boys.
I
say Jays in 6.
There you go. Mike says Jays in 6. Quickly, I got about a minute if you want to talk about Nova Scotia Power.
Well, just your caller there about why can't we buy power from other people? There are lots of other companies that generate power. There's a bunch of huge windmill farms and solar farms in Nova Scotia, and mine is based in pulp and power. But the problem is the only way to get it to our homes is Nova Scotia Power.
Through the lines.
They have to sell to Nova Scotia Power, and then Nova Scotia Power inflates it and sells it to the consumer. And I don't think a company that guarantees returns on their stock to their shareholders should be allowed to sell consumers their power. The government has to figure out a way to fix this.
I agree with you, Mike. Have a good weekend.
You too. See ya.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. I'm looking forward to your calls on Monday, so remember those numbers, because we're going to open up the telephone lines again, and we'll have a couple of games behind us, and we'll see whose predictions are proving to be correct and whose are not. Time to take another break here on the program. On the other side of it, the show continues. We're going to talk a little bit about music. And the guest that's going to join us here is somebody I've talked to many times. You've seen his writings. He's a publicist. He's a music journalist, which is a shrinking occupation, I will tell you that. We're going to talk a little bit about the music scene, live venues, and what we can expect from Canadian musicians moving forward when we sit down with music commentator, publicist Eric Alper. You're listening to The Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. We're back in minutes.
Thanks.
Welcome back. This is hour 3 of the Todd Veinotte Show. Our next guest you've no doubt seen somewhere. You've seen him on all kinds of networks. You've seen him on social media. Whenever we start talking about music, particularly Canadian music, Eric Alper is one of those go-to sources, and he's in Halifax and joins us on the telephone this morning. Eric, how are you?
I'm good. What an amazing city Halifax is. I love coming here. Last time I was here was for the Juno Awards, and now here I've got 5440 and Foreigner playing tonight.
Big shows and big Canadian acts. Eric, tell me a little bit about the Canadian music scene these days, and with all of the domination that we've been dealing with for all these years from the United States, is it still thriving? Is it still popular?
Yeah, it's thriving more than ever before, but it really depends on where you look. If you take a look at the major labels at Universal, Sony, and Warner, they have never made this much profit in music history thanks to music streaming services, 1 billion channels that you can stream television and movies, and they all need music, thanks to Broadway and live theater having a lot of music on there, and music documentaries and docudramas like the Bruce Springsteen one that opens tonight, or the Lilith Fair doc. So if you look at the recorded music side, it's really, really good. If you look on the independent side, it's a disaster right now, especially when it comes to live music and the challenges that the live music industry has faced, except if you're like a major artist like The Weeknd or Lady Gaga or Chaperone, they are doing just fine. But it's the other 99% that are having a little bit of problems that they've never really faced before since COVID.
Eric, and that was where I was going to go with this next. We bring Nova Scotia artists onto the program an awful lot, and I usually ask them this question. The way that we consume music has obviously changed. It used to be that there was a big push. You'd go into the studio and you'd put an album out, and then you hopefully you would get a label and some representation, and then there'd be a big push, and you could make some money off of the album sales, and then you would tour in support of the album. But that's now kind of switched over because of streaming, and now the tour is what it's all about, right?
Yeah, it used to be fairly easy back in the day or at least easier. Look, it was always hard, but it was at least there was a line that was quite clear. You were an artist or you were in a band and you practiced, and then you got to play small clubs and then generating, fan bases, and then you got to bigger clubs, you made a cassette or a CD, you got your video played on Much Music, and then suddenly overnight you were a superstar. And that's not the case. And part of it is that the up-and-coming artists that are, say, 15 years old to 25 really don't have an interest in playing coast to coast to coast in this country or even in America. They don't really see a whole lot of reason to play to 6 people, then 30, then 50, and it's very expensive to not only leave your job or school to go out on the road and kind of, try to get those rock and roll dreams happening. But good luck if you can find a venue that will have you. In fact, there is a lot of music venues, not just here in Halifax, but around the world, where music venues are facing skyrocketing rents that eat away at the profits. So many of these small and medium-sized music venues are shutting down and have shut down since COVID, never to return. Even the established clubs are really struggling to afford leases that felt once secure. And as the cities grow, the small independent venues get priced out of their own neighborhoods thanks to those developers who are happily willing to build up, condos or office towers instead of small clothing stores or small, music venues.
Eric, we're very lucky here in Halifax, particularly. We still have some mainstay venues, and I'm thinking of places like the Carlton on Argyle Street and the Lighthouse Arts Center in downtown that still work to give places for artists to ply their trade, so to speak. But when it is so dependent now for success on having live music, and these venues are shrinking, as you said, there's less and less of them every year. It must be very difficult to make a go of it.
Yeah, especially because, the venues really aren't the ones to blame. It's really us. I mean, audiences are pickier. We're definitely attending fewer live shows, and we're drinking less. We're smoking less. We're going out less. And that hybrid entertainment of live streams and music festivals have really changed fans' behavior. Fans don't mind going out to a festival. Like there's a lot in the East Coast seeing, 20 or 30 bands paying a couple of $100 for each one of it. But, the competition for our dollar is fierce. There's a lot of more people that are online that are happy to stay at home and potentially save their money. And one bad, slow season for a music venue can put them out of business forever. And that's where you end up with the rise of these giant music festivals that are booming. Fans can now see dozens of artists in one weekend at major festivals, and that's essentially what's happening. But it's kind of sad because I don't say this from a music industry perspective, but it's like all music has to start local. Drake started in Toronto. The Weeknd was playing to nobody in Toronto. Lady Gaga played for years at her local venues in New York and Los Angeles. So without those venues, you have different superstars that may break, say, on TikTok or on social media. But I think it's a little bit too early to see whether or not if the music industry is actually building careers that are long-term from, social media. Certainly there's a lot of artists that are exploding on TikTok, but talk to me 2 or 3 albums down the road, and let's see if these artists are still relevant in a fast-paced world that we're living in now.
Eric, you and I are of a certain vintage, and because of that...
29 years old, hitting 30 soon, I know.
Because of that, a lot of the bands that you and I grew up with, we're starting to see a lot of those fellas passing on. It's been a tough year for me in the genre of music that I used to listen to when we lost Ozzy, and then the one that hit me probably the hardest was just a couple of weeks ago, and the loss of Ace Frehley.
Yeah, but what's amazing, though, is that I'm not so sure that is going to stop any of those bands. In the case of Kiss, it's just going to be different. Paul Stanley and Gene Simmons have already talked and started leaking some information that there could be holograms or traveling museums that have concert footage or documentary-style screenings of things that we've never seen before. The Rolling Stones collective age right now is, I think, between the 4 of them, 7,000 years old.
And that's just Keith Richards.
Just this morning, they announced that one of their concert films from the 80s are coming back to the IMAX theater. Wow. So there's not a lack of these of music that is out there. It's just going to change, and when we're talking about classic rock, the band Kansas, I think, has 1 original member. Moody Blues was just down 1 more in the last couple of months. They're still out on tour. Chicago, that has 12 members, might have 1 original member. There could be that thinking that these bands might not ever retire as long as people don't mind thinking like they're not necessarily tribute bands. They're the spirit and maybe 1 degree of separation away from the original band. So there's nothing really to stop them from stopping to tour. The 4 Tops and the Temptations are still on tour. There hasn't been an original member in there probably for the last 2 or 3 decades.
Eric, before we let you go, I want to ask you about AI and its impact on the music business. We're starting to see AI-generated artists popping up.
Yeah, what's going to be fascinating is that the three major labels that I mentioned, Warner, Universal, and Sony, are working with the two biggest AI-generated companies. They've taken a look at the disaster that has befallen the book publishing companies and the film and TV studios for these AI companies to use their material without permission or payment. The music industry is working for these companies now to actually make sure that the music that they're going to use to train their AI models, they're going to pay for that. One thing that is going to be fascinating is that in one of the kind of future plans that the labels have is that fans can now potentially do duets with their favorite artists. You would pay a license fee like you normally would when you're doing a cover song, but you're going to share in the royalties. So you can go now do a duet, or not now, but soon, with Paul McCartney in a Beatles song, or create a song with Marvin Gaye. And so it's going to be scary. And it's going to be a glucks of really bad music. But this is the future that it's going into, as long as artists use AI for their benefit rather than against them.
Eric, the world's not ready for me to sing along with Paul McCartney. You're really not.
Yes, it is. And I want to hear it. And we are going to hear it right after the break. Stay tuned.
Thanks, Eric. I appreciate it. Enjoy Halifax, my friend.
Thank you, sir.
That is a music journalist. He represents some bands, and he is the go-to guy for Canadian music, and that is Eric Alper. He mentioned 5440 and Foreigner. They're playing down at Scotiabank tonight, and I tell you what, when Vanessa told me that we were doing this next interview, I got a little giddy because I've been following 5440 since the 80s, and we're going to have a conversation with Brad Merritt when we come back. You're listening to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. We're back in minutes. All right, we're continuing to roll through the fabulous Friday edition of the Todd Veinotte Show. Hope you're having a fantastic day as we get set to celebrate yet another weekend. There's a lot going on, isn't there? Holy smokes, the Blue Jays go tonight. That game starts at 9 o'clock, and I'm going to repeat myself again, but I want to be very clear. That game can be heard right here on the radio. It's starting at the first pitch is at just after 9 o'clock, so I hope you can join us for that. The Halifax Mooseheads are in town on Saturday. They're playing Cape Breton, which, of course, is always that fun interprovincial rivalry, and it's D&D night, and we'll get out there and celebrate the military. Scotiabank is a busy place. There's a show there tonight, and I hope many of you are going to see it. If you are, I'm jealous. Unfortunately, I have another event to go to tonight, so I'm unable to go. And it will be fantastic to see Foreigner and 5440 at Scotiabank. But I'll tell you what, I've been following our next guest and his band, 5440, for a long time. I think I go back as far as, it was the second album, so it would have been what? Brad, 1986, did you release that?
Yes, that's right.
Brad,
absolutely.
Brad Merritt joining us from 5440 on the phone. I appreciate you spending some time with us today, sir.
Yeah, it's my pleasure.
So you have a fan base that has been following you, and I can count myself as one of them, for a very long time in this country.
Yes. Yeah, no, well, we've been at it for 44 years, since I was 20 years old. And, we're happy to be on our way to Halifax right now.
Brad, tell me a little bit about being a Canadian band and implying your trade for all these years in the Canadian market. How has it changed?
The technology's changed a lot. We used to actually make our own, record records, and then we would get them pressed, and then we would take them to gigs and give them to distributors and take them right to record stores. And now we just send it to an aggregator, and it's on iTunes and Apple Music and Spotify the next day. So that's one thing that's changed. I mean, a lot of things haven't changed. The way you get around the country hasn't really changed that much. The way people interact at concerts is pretty much the same as it was. Less spitting than there was in 1980. So there's been some changes and been some things which are exactly the same.
It must be wild to look out over the stage and not have to dodge the spit. But secondly, take a look at like a number of generations of fans that are staring back at you.
Yeah, well, this is the thing. It's now become kind of a multi-generational event when we play. For a long time, I think our crowd was kind of getting older, kind of with us, but also people who are older than us as we were going on were gravitating towards what we were doing because they were looking for a place where they could see rock music. It was kind of we'd become a bit of a part of a subculture. Rock music had kind of diminished with the presence of hip hop and the growth of country and pop music in general. And now there's piles and piles of young people. And I don't know if that's the next generation or whether people are looking for something which is, authentic or resonates with them. But yeah, audiences seem to be getting younger lately.
Brad, tell me a little bit. I mentioned 1986 and 5440, the album, and of course, I Go Blind on that was a big cut off of that album, and that went on to bigger and bigger things when Darius Rucker and Hootie and the Blowfish covered it. Tell me how that all rolled out.
Yeah, well, we used to tour in the U.S. a lot back in the 80s, and we were signed to Warner Brothers at that time, and we had that record out, and it was big they came from Maryland and South Carolina, that area. I think the drummer actually came. Anyway, they went to school in South Carolina. That's where and we would play this club in Washington, D.C. called the 930 Club. And the two brothers, Dean and Mark, they'd come to see us. And we love your band, and we've got a band, and we play frat parties, and we do the whole Green record, and blah, 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 blah. And so we knew that it was, doing pretty well there, and it was getting bigger, and was on MTV, blah, 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 blah. And anyway, a few years later, we're playing Snow Jam out in Banff, and then our record company rep from Calgary tells us, he goes, yeah, it's like this band Hootie and the Blowfish, and I kind of slightly recalled them, and I went, oh, yeah. They put I Go Blind as the B-side of their new single, and their new single is rising through the charts. So that was our first inkling, that they had done it. But it was, it didn't really mean much because, it's until they released it to the Friends soundtrack.
Right.
That's when it really took off, right? So they had this huge first album, and radio was looking for another single to play before the second album came out, and they basically started, even though it was never released as a single on the Friends soundtrack, and it was a very organic thing. And then it just became huge. It was the number 3 song on the Billboard Top 100 in whenever it was, 1999 or something like that. So 13 years after it's released by us, it becomes a big hit for Hootie the Blowfish.
It's funny, Brad, because like I've said, I've been following you guys for so long, and I remember when Hootie and the Blowfish released it, or it was released to radio, and it started to get played, I'm like, hey, wait, that's a 5440 song.
Yeah, we were okay. We were okay with that.
I imagine. I absolutely imagine that. You're on your way to Halifax tonight, taking the stage with Foreigner at the Scotiabank. That'll be a show, won't it?
No, we've done 2 so far. We got another 10 to go, and it's been a lot of fun so far. So we're looking forward to tonight.
Anything new in the hopper when it comes to new music, or are you guys just too busy touring?
No, that's a very good question. I'm glad you brought that up. So we have 3 brand new songs which are out on Spotify, Apple Music, Tidal, etc., etc. that people can check out. We're playing 1 new song tonight. We have a new album coming out in January.
Awesome! Looking forward to it, my friend.
Yeah.
Anyway, have a good show tonight, and thanks for spending some time with us, Brad. I know you're busy traveling.
Yep, my pleasure. Thanks very much. Appreciate it.
That is Brad Merritt of 5440. Been around since the early 80s. Still doing it. Still putting out new music. Tonight, 7:30, Scotiabank Centre, playing with Foreigner. So a double bill of classic rock and roll music. And as Brad told you, maybe some new stuff out there as well. Man, I wish I could go to that show. You guys are lucky. They are, by the way, playing Saturday night in Moncton, and then from there it moves on to Montreal and then to Ottawa and then on to Ontario. So this is the beginning of a rather large tour for these two bands. Need to stop, take a break. We're going to continue the show on the other side. We're not quite done yet. Coming up after the news at 12:30, it's time for our weekend. I'm going to get it right eventually. I've been talking to this guy forever, and I can't ever get the title of this right because it's a tongue twister. Weekend weather wrap-up. Weather specialist Allister Aalders, your guest. You're listening to the Todd Veinotte Show. Is it Friday yet? I'm Dan Ahlstrand. Back in minutes. He becomes... All right, welcome back. He becomes so important to this program, he gets his own intro, and that is, of course, our good friend and weather specialist, and that is Allister Aalders. Allister, you seem to be in here more than me most weeks.
Hey, I mean, what was it? I was in earlier this week, too, talking about the rain, so hey, I'll talk about the weather any day.
Go figure.
We could probably cover the whole show just talking about weather if you wanted.
Can you imagine a fella that is studying meteorology and is very soon to be a meteorologist wanting to talk about weather? I kind of figure it out.
It's a little surprising, really.
It certainly is. The big weather story, at least this week for us in HRM and for Nova Scotia, was that rain that you were talking about, Allister. And we had two, I don't want to call them significant, but we had two rain events this week that I know a lot of people have been watching and waiting for.
Mm-hmm. Events is a good word. I mean, especially the other night, it was very heavy.
Lightning.
There was the embedded thunderstorms that not just rolled through the Halifax area, but through a large portion of the province. So rainfall amounts were once again, like we've been talking about week after week, incredibly localized. But here in the Halifax area, a large chunk of HRM did see in excess of 15, even 20 millimeters. Some had upwards of 25 to 30. So, I mean, we talked earlier in the week about the deficit we were in, for October. So while it would have been nice for, say, a lighter rain that produced that much rain, because obviously with the heavier rain, we run the risk of it running off, just given how fast it's falling and how dry the ground is. Certainly a benefit for the lakes and the rivers, which are still incredibly low. And as we've talked about week after week, we are in such a deficit that we need to make up for as we go into the cold and winter season. So it was certainly welcome. I had a few complaints about the thunderstorms because, not everyone's a fan, but I heard no complaints about the rain that was falling.
People complain about thunder?
It's quite interesting because as someone who loves weather, I love thunderstorms, but there are quite a few people who do not like them for various reasons.
My dogs never liked them.
Their pets, the effect it has on especially, cats, dogs, horses, and other wildlife. Some people have experience where maybe their house was struck by lightning when they were a child. Some people just have quite a fear of it. I get messages from quite a few people who are not fans of it and do have, phobias of thunderstorms. So while it's, enjoyable for perhaps me and you, and for a lot of people, it's not for everyone. So if you were a fan of it, you certainly liked the weather that moved through the other night. If not, you were probably glad that it was at least fairly fast moving, where it only really went on for at most a couple of hours, depending on where you were.
It was a light show, that's for sure. In fact,
Indeed.
I think I said on the air earlier this week, we live in a building where it's a metal roof, and when it rained as hard as it rained, it woke me up, and then I saw a flash, and I'm like, what was that? Because we haven't had that for a long time. And then the thunder rolled, and I'm like, Allister was right.
Yeah, because we did say there would be a risk of a thunderstorm rolling through that night, and at the time I was like, I didn't think we would see quite the established line that we did. It really did hold together. So it was, and it wasn't just localized where, earlier in the week when we had that similar system in the morning, there were a few very localized thunderstorms where this was, South Shore, Halifax, parts of the Valley, Hants, and parts of the East really all kind of experienced it. The line did start to weaken as it moved further east, and I did receive some complaints in Cape Breton that the storms didn't reach them because, as there are people who do not like thunderstorms, there are people who love them, and we're hoping that perhaps one would roll through. But as is the nature with this type of weather, it can be very incredibly localized.
Before we get into this weekend's weather report, Allister, I've heard from people over the last week from the Mersey River, from the LaHave River, from the Gold River, all the way from the South Shore right into Halifax, that are all saying that they're either empty or they're very, very low. We're still in a major deficit when it comes to rain, are we not?
We are most definitely. I mean, it's the rain that we had the last couple of days is beneficial, but there's no just magic solution where, we get the rain one night and then everything is back to where it should be, because we are in such a deficit where this, it's not just say a month or two of less than normal rainfall. This has been ongoing since, for some, late spring, but really through the summer and now the first half of the fall. So we really need, a normal amount of rainfall, which at this time of year is starting to go up. We should be around, 130 to 150 millimeters of rain in a typical October. And I mentioned the other day, we were at about, it depended on where you were, 15 to 20 millimeters month to date. With that rain we had the other night, we're probably closer to, for some 25 to 40, 50 millimeters. That's still an incredible deficit on top of the deficit that, has been occurring for the last several months, especially, Halifax has been impacted by this, as much as other parts of the province to some extent, but, in places like the Annapolis Valley where, they've had some of the driest conditions on record where, in some places they've had, only about 10 millimeters of rain for an entire month, through parts of August and September. It's incredibly dry in those areas, and we really need a lot of rain to make up for it. And, now that we're getting towards the end of October, I don't think we're going to quite dig ourselves out of that hole in time for the winter. I said last week, there's time for it to improve. We go from maybe an extreme, exceptional drought to moderate or severe, which is still not great. But we really need to hope for either a late season that the ground doesn't necessarily freeze up as early as it typically would, so we can absorb as much rainfall going into the winter. Then once it does freeze up, hope that, maybe you probably won't like what I'm going to say, but hope that we get like an average or above average snowfall for the winter, and hope that it's a slow melt in the spring, because so often is the case now with how our climate is changing. We're seeing that snow melt faster and sooner. Typically it's happening more so through March towards early April, depending on where you are. Whereas, it would in the past be late March and through April, and we would get some late season storms, which we don't get as often as we used to. So we need quite a bit of snow through the winter to help replenish the aquifers as we go into next spring, and then hope for a rainy spring too, I think, to really bring us out of this situation completely. It's unfortunately not a solution, and I know I've heard from some people who say, well, the ground seems wet and there's puddles around, but obviously what's happening at the surface runs deep, and it's still incredibly dry for some more than others, but we have a lot of work to do to get out of this deficit.
The segment's called Allister's Weekend Weather Update. Got it right this time, so let's do that very thing. The weekend, Allister, what can we expect?
Not too bad for this final weekend of October. We're between two areas of high pressure, so one's not going to be right overhead, so we're in a bit of a trough in the jet stream. So we'll see more clouds in the mix Saturday and Sunday. I think more sunshine in the mix Saturday, and then Sunday it's a building cloud cover. Low chance of an isolated shower late afternoon Saturday into the evening. Nothing to cancel your plans over. Temperatures mid-teens, so not too bad. Sunday, we come back to where we should be for this time of year, about 12, 13 degrees. As I mentioned, building cloud cover, but the day is looking dry. So not a bad weekend shaping up if you have any outdoor plans on the go. And then certainly looking at a more unsettled pattern for the first half of next week. Low pressure moving in on Monday, likely with a few showers. And then watching what could be an interesting setup late next week with a coastal low. Now, this is not related to Tropical Storm Melissa, which we can discuss if you want to.
We're going to talk about it in a minute.
But a coastal low that will develop off the U.S. eastern seaboard and likely crawl up it as we go later next week. So it looks like around Wednesday night or Thursday that will move in with some rain and likely some very gusty winds that could linger into possibly Thursday night, maybe even Halloween Friday. So it looks like certainly a bit of an unsettled end to the week, and I'm not putting the final verdict on Halloween yet.
Careful.
Because there's the chance that it does move out in time for a dry Halloween, but it does look like certainly Thursday is going to be a wet and windy day.
My costume might not hold up to the rain, Allister.
What are you going as this year, Dan?
I can't give that away. Vanessa and I are going to dress up for Halloween, and she's been needling me to see what it is, but I just won't tell her. Anyway,
I'll be here next Friday to see, hopefully.
There you go. Maybe Allister's going to dress up too. We'll have to see. Anyway, you mentioned Tropical Storm Melissa. For those of us that perhaps have vacations planned down the Caribbean, down Jamaica way, or down into the Dominican Republic. This is a bit of a weird storm because it's not really moving. It's stationary.
It is crawling. It's barely moving. As you said, the steering currents around it are very weak. So it's sitting in an environment where it's not able to move, but the waters are incredibly warm. So as we go later this weekend, and it slowly will start to progress towards the west this weekend into early next week, it's expected to gain a lot of steam and likely becomes a hurricane and then a major hurricane, which is Category 3 or higher by the time we get to likely around, I would say, later Sunday, possibly towards Monday. How strong it gets is still a bit unclear, possibly upwards of Category 4 or a bit higher. So that's incredibly strong, for those who are wondering about the wind speeds on that. A Category 4 would be maximum sustained winds of 209 to 251 kilometers per hour.
Wow.
And that's sustained. So it could be incredibly dangerous, and where it's going to track is still somewhat up in the air just because the steering currents are so weak. But it looks like right now, concern for parts of Haiti and then especially Jamaica, where the storm center will be tracking likely to the south later this weekend into next week, possibly making landfall or likely going west of Jamaica. And given its slow progression, certainly the risk of, torrential, long-lasting flooding rains.
Yes.
On top of the winds and the threat of storm surge. And then finally starts to kick off towards the north-northeast, likely passing over, possibly, I should say, not likely at this point because there's a lot of uncertainty, over eastern Cuba as we go towards the middle of next week. Beyond that point, a lot of uncertainty. There will be a trough in the jet stream over the U.S., a ridge of high pressure over the Atlantic. It's going to squeeze between the two. Does it go harmlessly out to sea from there? That's a possibility. Does it come a little close for comfort, in about a week's time? I can't say at this point. Certainly we have to keep an eye on it just because of how it is interacting with those features.
Still a long way to go,
It's still a long way, a week, hypothetically a week, 7, maybe 8 days. And, I would caution, you're going to start hearing a lot about it. I'm already receiving questions about people who are supposedly hearing about what it could be like in a week's time from the system, with stats. Oh, it's expected to be a Cat 1 moving through here next week. And it's, we can't disclose that at this point because we don't know.
No, I just looking. In fact, I just grabbed a bunch of spaghetti models while you were talking, and nothing really seems to be.
It looks like someone threw the spaghetti at the maps for once.
All over the place. So way too early to tell if it's going to have any kind of impact here.
And the National Hurricane Center track only goes out 5 days because realistically, it's within the 5-day window where we get our most accuracy. We'll be watching the trends and the forecast through the upcoming weekend. Something to watch. If it concerns us, we will be talking about it. But we're hoping that it'll
follow the rest of them this year and stay out to sea. Allister, have a fantastic week. Who's going to win the World Series?
Ooh, Blue Jays.
That's the way to say it. We're going to stop and take a break. When we come back, we're going to go to our sports guru to end the week, and I'll bet you that he's going to have an opinion on who's going to win the World Series. We'll find out what it is when Cecil Wright joins us right after the break.
Axe.
We're down to just hours now. First pitch, 9 o'clock tonight, right here on 95.7 News Radio and on Sportsnet. And I know that our next guest will have his ears and his eyes glued on the World Series, and that is our sports guru, Cecil Wright. Cecil, how are you?
Oh, I can't wait to get her going.
Yeah, it's Major League Baseball does it right. I mean, by this time next week, we'll be talking about a Game 7 if it goes that far.
Oh, that would be sweet if it did go that far, but unfortunately, I don't see it happening.
And you're saying that the Blue Jays are going to win in what?
Well, I just, in all seriousness, I just think the Dodgers starting pitching is probably the best we've seen in many, many years. And, if Toronto is able to go out there and beat those starters, then they certainly deserve the World Series trophy. I just can't see it happening, man. I mean, Blake Snell has been unbelievable. Glasnow's fabulous. Yamamoto's unbelievable. And then you got what's his name? Ohtani bringing up the rear. I mean, and plus, let's not forget that Los Angeles is playing this series in honor of Clayton Kershaw because this is his swan song.
And he may be in the roster. I'm hearing that they may put him in the roster for this.
I think he's going to pitch a game. I think Dave Roberts has so much respect for what he's given that team over the years that you're going to see him get at least one start.
The rosters are likely out there, but I haven't had a chance to go dig into them. Anyway, I've said it on the open hour earlier that all of those things I absolutely agree with you that they have the best starting pitching rotation we've seen in years, but on the Blue Jays side of things, we heard the same thing about great starting pitching with the Yankees. We heard about great starting pitching with the Mariners, and they made the good pitchers look bad.
Well, I wouldn't say they made them look bad. I would just say that they took advantage of every opportunity, especially in the later innings. Everything fell into place for the Blue Jays, and that's good. And, I'm a big American League East fan, so it wouldn't hurt my feelings if Toronto was to win. I just think the Dodgers have a superior team all around, start to finish.
How deep a series do you think this is? Is it going to be quick, or are we going to go the length?
I think 5, maybe 6 games.
All right. Well, we'll forgive you this time.
Well, I'm just trying to be honest with you. That's all.
Toronto Maple Leafs having some internal turmoil, can I call it, this early in the season when the goalie's calling out defensemen? Is that a sign of things to come?
Well, I think the goalie should shut his mouth and play his game. And, they're all professionals, and there's nobody out there who's trying to look bad intentionally. And, when the goalie has a bad night, I don't hear the defensemen or the forwards, talking about how terrible their goaltender was. So I just don't believe in trying to make your teammates look bad or saying anything that could be construed as derogatory towards one of your own teammates. That's not how you play the game.
There are some out there that's suggesting it's beyond time that somebody said something about that.
Well, yeah, and I said last year that there was something wrong in that locker room. Nobody believed me, and then they go and they get rid of Marner. I mean, I would have got rid of Matthews. You would have got more for him.
Oh, see, so you're swearing to me now. The first overall pick, and you trade him. Can you imagine what the press would say about that?
Well, it depends on who they would have got in return, and I'm sure they would have got something of great value.
The NFL continuing to obviously to roll along here. We saw the Chargers dominate the Vikings last night. Your thoughts on the season thus far, and more particularly on what I called the geriatric bowl last week between the Steelers and the Bengals and the old guy Flacco winning.
And this weekend you got Green Bay playing Pittsburgh. So right. Aaron Rodgers against his old team.
Right.
And don't think that's not going to have special meaning to that old-timer, because it is. I just don't see them beating Green Bay. But, I think the biggest surprise to me so far, other than the play of my New England Patriots.
I was going to say it should be the Patriots because they're surprising the heck out of me.
Well, is the ineptitude of Baltimore.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, there was a lot of the experts saying that they could see Baltimore playing against Buffalo for the AFC title or something close to that. And here, Baltimore, they've won one game?
Right. Yeah. Terrible. Your Patriots are playing my Browns this weekend, sir. What do you think about that matchup?
I think that you and I ought to make a little wager, but I don't think you'd be courageous enough to do it.
I would never I don't wager often, and I would not wager on the Browns this year, never.
No, but I will tell you this. I've been impressed with the Browns' defense. They played very, very solid.
Well, yeah, and Myles Garrett and that team. I mean, we've had a strong defense for a couple of years. It's just we can't ever get the offense sorted out. And we're 97 new quarterbacks that we've had in the last 10 years. It's crazy.
Who's starting this weekend? Do you know?
I have no idea. Didn't even look. I think it was the fellow that won last week. So, but anyway, I'm surprised that we haven't put Sanders in, to be quite honest, because they're just grabbing at straws, and why not? Right? There's no pressure now.
Well, the way I look at it, at the very least, you give him the start, hope that he plays well, and he becomes trade bait.
Or if he plays off and he makes you look smart, right?
That's right. Yeah. That's right. You gave him just enough of a cushion so that now he's grasped the offense, and you can say all those kinds of things. And,
right.
And if he does become trade bait, then you probably get a decent draft pick for him.
Cecil, enjoy the World Series. We'll talk next week when the Jays are champions.
Well, I hope you're right. I really do, but I can't see it.
All right, sir. Have a good weekend.
You too.
That's Cecil Wright, and that's going to do it, folks. It's been a fantastic week. I've really enjoyed the open hours this week, and I always enjoy the interaction with you all. It's why we do the open hours, and we're going to continue to do that because it's still a lot of fun. Thanks to all of our guests who have joined us and imparted their knowledge upon us all week. Can't go away without saying thank you to Vanessa Vandenez. And yes, she's going to dress up for Halloween, and no, I don't know what it's going to be yet. There's no pressure as she's looking at me through the glass. We'll have to wait and see. We'll post pictures onto social media when we do it, because I'm going to dress up too. It's been a long time. I don't think the world's ready to see me dressed up. But you're going to, because it's going to happen. Hope you have a great weekend, everybody. Enjoy the World Series. Go Jays, go. Can you imagine if we can win a couple of games to start this? Changes everything. It's going to be a fantastic World Series. Until then, everybody, be safe this weekend. Get out there and enjoy what Nova Scotia has to offer. Be well and be kind to one another.